abuse of power. He exceeded his authority by doing this. Blah, 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 blah. So it has to be undone because it was done the wrong way. I mean, that's what they keep saying. It was a I don't know, overreach, presidential overreach or whatever. But you have to remember that he didn't do this. Obama is the he I'm discussing. Did not put this out there until after the comprehensive immigration reform had been voted on in the Senate, sent to the House, and the House said, no, we're not even going to look at it. Not even going to talk about it. So there's the president facing a situation where, okay, we tried, we did what we were supposed to do in order to try to fix our immigration system and to make things okay for the people who are here, who are working, who are, important members of our community, particularly the Dreamers, who are here through no fault of their own. They were brought here as children. They had no choice. They're part of this country, and they grew up here. He was saying, okay, what can I do for them? That's what DACA was just, I can't get, Congress has already acted. The House refuses to. We have a whole political party, the Republicans, who are just sitting down and saying, nope, not even going to think about it, not going to talk about it. We're not going to do anything. We're going to let these people suffer because we don't like you and we don't want you to have any successes. It was a disgusting display of partisanship over patriotism, in my opinion. And so the president did something to relieve these people who were suffering. And in so doing, he has made it possible for them to live reasonable lives. And it's necessary that something be done about it. And to their credit, I'm not one who gives Republicans much credit, of course. But there are okay, I can't read this one. This looks like, never mind. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. It was a story about Republicans considering plans to let Dreamers remain in the U.S., but it was very much from some kind of strange source that I don't trust. So I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to pollute the airwaves with some of the stuff that you find on here. Anyway, to their credit, there are some Republicans who are working on this and who are attempting to do something about it. I think it's deplorable that they waited until now to do it. But better late than never, I guess. Anyway. Here's something from The Guardian. It says, since we brought up the orange one in our last story, I'll read this because this gives you a sense. This person is now just about like a day or two away from holding the highest office in the land. So think of that while you hear this. This is entitled, Trump Doesn't Let Facts Get in the Way of Immigration Scare Stories. And he's not alone. Facts have never got in the way of Donald Trump's particularly pernicious form of populism, and today's interview in the Times is no exception. When it comes to all matters migration, Trump's grasp of independently sourced data is particularly shaky. Not that that bothers him one jot. He knows that those voters who lap up his inflammatory rhetoric care little for objective truth. In the interview with Michael Gove, Trump makes sweeping statements about both the UK and Germany and their policies towards refugees. On Germany and Angela Merkel, he says, "I think she made one very catastrophic mistake, and that was taking all of these illegals. You know, taking all of the people from wherever they come from, and nobody even knows where they come from." He clearly hasn't bothered to read the 1951 Refugee Convention, which is enshrined in international law. This piece of legislation, pivotal to the way the second half of the 20th century and the first part of the 21st century has responded to desperate human beings caught up in conflicts around the globe, states clearly that it is not illegal to flee persecution and seek sanctuary. It is a basic and precious human right. Trump's factually inaccurate description of refugees as illegals is likely to be wishful thinking on his part. There is no end to the list of groups he has publicly fantasized about banning, from Mexicans to Muslims, Syrians to Sudanese. He is right about one thing. Germany has welcomed large numbers of refugees, but he is absolutely wrong to declare that the UK has done the same thing. In another sweeping, fact-starved statement, Trump says, "Countries want their own identity, and the UK wanted its own identity. But I do think if they hadn't been forced to take in all the refugees, then you wouldn't have had a Brexit." So, Mr. President-elect, here are some inconvenient facts from the Office of National Statistics. In 2015, total migration to the UK was 631,000. Asylum applications were 32,733, just 5.3% of the overall numbers entering the UK. In 2015, the UK received just 3% of the asylum applications made across Europe. During the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War, the UK has got away with taking in a breathtakingly low number of people who are running for their lives. The largest number of people migrating to the UK come here to work and apply for work visas in order to do so. The next largest group is students. They too apply for a visa in order to gain entry to the UK. The third group are people joining family members who have proved to the Home Office that they can support their incoming relatives. And the final, tiny group at the bottom of the immigration pile are the asylum seekers who have suffered the most but get the worst deal. They're banned from working in all but exceptional cases and are not eligible for council accommodation, and several thousand of them are forcibly removed from the UK every year because the Home Office has deemed their cases to be without merit. The UK government is not content to contextualize the low numbers of asylum seekers coming here and wants to drive the numbers down even further to pick up more populist votes. The UK is a signatory to a variety of deals that enhance Fortress UK and prevent those running for their lives from getting here in the first place, or ensuring that those who do reach these shores can be booted out more easily. Battening down the humanitarian hatches against asylum seekers includes the EU deal with Turkey to prevent Syrians reaching Europe, a deal with Afghanistan to increase the removal of failed Afghani asylum seekers back home, and the Khartoum process to deter people from Horn of Africa countries from seeking sanctuary in the UK. Trump isn't the only politician to conflate asylum and immigration. The Breaking Point poster in the run-up to the referendum vote is a classic example of this insidiously misleading technique. Asylum seekers and refugees are not only at the bottom of the statistical pile, but also endure the worst treatment here. Where are the stories of American bankers working in the city having eggs thrown at them because they're not British? The racists pick up the soft targets, those whose skin is a healthier shade of brown than Trump's fake orange complexion, those who speak imperfect English or dress differently. Hitler's comment that the great masses of people will more easily fall victim to a big lie than a small one appears to be a view Trump has taken to heart. He was quick to lambast fake news on Twitter about the intelligence dossier containing compromising claims about his personal life, while blithely disseminating damaging untruths about refugees in order to whip up hatred against them. It is no wonder that not only Trump's detractors in the United States, but also millions of the most vulnerable people around the world are quaking with fear about what lies ahead once he steps into the White House. Now, one interesting point, first of all, I'd have to agree with everything they said here. This is pretty much spot on. But one point is sort of strained. In talking about Trump, it says, he knows that those voters who lap up his inflammatory rhetoric care little for objective truth. I don't know that that's right. I don't honestly know how some of these people imagine the truth. I think it's incorrect in that I think they care a great deal about truth, but it's subjective truth, not objective truth. They care about their truth. They care about how they feel about things. And they are looking for and have found in this guy someone who tells them their truth, who tells them a truth that seems true to them. And it's not that they don't care about objective truth, it's just that they've come to distrust so many different sources because those sources were not telling them what they wanted to hear, that now it is difficult to get anything like objective truth to them. And this was a conscious effort, years in the making, by entities like Fox News and right-wing talk radio, to name just a couple of the biggest culprits. They have been creating an alternate reality constructed for people that didn't want to believe what they were hearing on the regular, the usual sources, the mass media, the commercial media, the everything, basically, universities, schools, books, TV, television, news, radio news, newspapers, all these different things, for years have been telling people stuff they didn't want to hear. No, it's not okay for you to think this way. No, it's not okay for you to look at things like this. No, it's not okay to treat people like that. And rather than go look in the mirror and say, well, everybody is telling me it's wrong to be like this, maybe I shouldn't do it. Instead, they just grumbled, they gnashed their teeth, and basically waited until somebody came along and said, no, it's okay to be a bigot. It's okay to be a racist. It's okay to be who you are. And suddenly they were happy again, because they have their truth. So I think they do care about truth. It's just that it's a complicated truth. It's a truth that comes from religion or a certain kind of religious belief that kind of grew up alongside. I think it started first. Okay, I'm going back here. I'm trying to recreate the past here for you a little bit. But, the first ones to reject the quote-unquote objective truth that everyone kind of was forced to agree with were churches who were saying, no, evolution is not how we became humans or how we got here. God created us just like we are. So for a long time, religion has struggled with science and other kinds of voices for the last word in what is true. So that's where this alternate reality kind of thing came from or grew out of. It wasn't just invented. People like that last article, they quote Hitler and talking about the big lie versus the small lie and all that thing. It wasn't the communists. It wasn't the Nazis. It wasn't all these people. It has been all along, as science, as objective reality has taken shape and form in terms of things being testable, and in terms of things connecting to other things and being something you can touch and see and like I said, put to the test and say, okay, is this real? Is this not real? How does this work? All these things. So there's been the two parallel tracks of thinking going back hundreds, thousands of years. One seeks to understand the world based around the so-called scientific view. What can you test? What can you prove? What can you show to be the case based on practical experience? And the other is, what do you believe? What is your faith? What do you have faith in? What speaks to your heart and is true to your emotions and to your insides and to your desire for confidence and what am I looking for? I'm having trouble with words today. I know you know what I mean, but it's it speaks to a desire for something greater than what can be seen, what can be touched, what can be heard. What your senses tell you. It's seeking for something more, and there are so many people whose faith is based on, well, it can't be, this can't be all there is. There has to be more to it. There has to be something greater. There has to be something deeper and more meaningful. There has to be a reason for all of this, a plan. That's faith. That's religion. That's something. And people for generations have clung to that, and many have found sort of a way of being comfortable with both, of looking at religion as answering the deeper questions about the meaning of life, and looking to science to answer the more practical questions of how does life work, and that was sort of, it was sometimes a tense relationship, but it was a relationship that worked for a long time. But as we have moved into the modern era, and people who want power, who want control, who want, all those sorts of things, they're uncomfortable with the ascendancy of science, in the sense that when religion was everything and religious leaders controlled everything, it was pretty easy to gain power, because all you had to do was put on the robes and speak the words, and then people believed you, and then you could lead them into war and get their money from them, do all these things. It was easy to manipulate people and control them through religion. But as science gained ascendancy, and as a larger and larger number of the population, or not number, sorry, larger percentage of the population became educated and learned some basic critical thinking skills, it was becoming harder to manipulate them in those ways. And so I really think that to a certain extent, this talk radio and Fox News and conservative echo chamber, kind of all that stuff that you hear about, is an outgrowth of what do you do in that situation when people are not as easily led and confused because there's too much information out there. It's too easy to disprove things. You can't say, oh, I had a vision, and that vision is we were supposed to kill everybody in Urbana and give me control of their land. You know, nobody's going to believe that anymore. So it was getting a little harder to lead people down whatever path you wanted to lead them down. So they invented their own parallel reality. That suppose they have scientists, they have philosophers, they have all those things. They have people filling all those roles who are all telling them the same thing. You can't believe what mainstream media tells you. You can't believe what liberals tell you. You can't believe what the colleges. Liberals control everything. The education system, science, all those things. And then so it's like telling you you can't believe that, but you can trust us. And there are a lot of people that do. And they just don't. There is no objective reality for them because no matter what you say to them or try to show them, they know you're lying because you disagree with them. Because you're telling them something they don't want to hear. You must be lying. And I think that is the single most serious event, growth, the change that has come along in probably 1,000 years, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's saying too much. Maybe it's not that different from when the Nazis gained power in Germany, or when communism was perverted to the point where it became whatever it became in USSR and in China and Cambodia and all those places. I don't know. You know, I guess in their own way, those things were just as serious. For their time and in their place. So I guess it's just because this is happening here in a place where I live that it seems so concerning to me and such a big deal. But yeah, I think it equals those things in terms of what damage it could do if people of goodwill don't stand up and say no and don't fight against it. Yeah, so I've kind of gone as far in that direction as I can go. It's all a long way around saying that I kind of disagreed with the Trump followers not believing in objective reality. I think they believe in what they consider objective reality, and it is really subjective reality. But they believe it to be objective. They don't understand the difference, or they have conflated the two to such an extent that they don't see the difference anymore. And so to them, if it feels true, it is true. And I've had conversations with people, and they've said just ridiculous things in all seriousness. Things that, like, you don't even have to be that perceptive or that up on the news or that aware or conscious to know are not true. But they'll say them, and they'll mean them. And so if that is what you believe, if you believe something like that, then yeah, you're going to base your actions and your other beliefs and your proposed solutions and all those things on this mistaken bit of information. And so you give somebody a whole slate of those things. Then, naturally they're going to make what seem to you as just ridiculous and crazy decisions, and they will make no sense to you. So, when we look at the people who voted for Trump, to most of us, it just seems absurd. You're going to lose your health care. You're going to lose this. You're going to lose that. All these terrible things are going to happen to you because of this choice. How could you not see that? Even if you don't care about me or us or these people, you are hurting yourself by making this choice. How can you not see that that was a terrible choice? But that's because we're looking at it from a perspective that takes into account, the real world, the way things really are. And the people, by and large, some of them were cynical, but some of them were cynical, and some were just plain racists and bigots and all those different things. But some are just seriously deluded, and were making what for them would be a perfectly rational choice that's just based on nonsense. And it's that nonsense that we have to fight against, and I don't know how to do it. Please believe that I don't have a good solution for this. I am doing my part. I have multiple radio shows. I take every opportunity, using every tool that I have available to me, to share real information with other people. That's why I do this, week after week, day after day, hour after hour. I am just using everything at my disposal, everything that I can get my hands on that allows me to share information in order to get information across. I know I'm not talking to a lot of the people that need to hear it most, because they're not listening to me, and they would turn me off the second they heard me. Even if they did listen to me. But maybe I can talk to one of their friends or somebody in their family who will learn something, and it will grow from there. So maybe you're not one of the people that really needs to hear this stuff, but maybe you know somebody that does. And once you've heard it and you've had it articulated, you will better be able to articulate it to them, and on and on. So that's how we operate. That's how we share information, and how we get the word out, is we just share it with each other over and over and over. And then you come up with a better way of saying it than I did. And so I copy you the next time. And on until we've created a message that people are going to hear and understand, and we're going to get somewhere. So anyway, I went down a lot of paths here in all sorts of different directions, and I don't know, some of that was about immigration.